We do not have any Zoom stuff out quite yet, so it is what it is. Old business, our tech class. We've been running it for 2 weeks now, and we're going into our 3rd week this time. At the end of this, sometime mid-March or late March, we will have a test session. So it's not just for those people, it'll be for anybody. There'll be more information passed out on that if anybody wants to upgrade their thing or have somebody that wants to test out things like that. It'll be a sign up. We're not sure where, when, or how we're going to do this yet. And it's quite a ways away, so we're not going to worry too much about it. But if you're interested in it, we'll keep you updated on the thing, and it is what it is. Any questions about anything we've talked about? Good. Golden Corral. They want us back. Jonathan has sent me a couple notes saying we're going to be open for breakfast here in February, and right now we don't feel comfortable enough with people not having the vaccine and this and that. We don't want anybody to get sick or anything like that. So I just kind of told him we're going to hold off for a while, and he agreed. But we will keep you well advised on when we're going to do this. If we do, right now they have not been open for breakfast. They just opened here in February, and I can't remember the date. Maybe it was the 13th or so. And they were open like, I think it was 9 to 11 for breakfast. Now, I don't know if that means you get in the building at 9 or what, but it makes no difference for right now. So that is what it is. Any questions? We're thinking very seriously about putting a Hamlet class on in April or May of this year. Once we get this one out of the way, we're going to possibly have a Hamlet class and do this. We're also going to come up with a, how many people take QST? Good. Have you seen the article about the new ham kit? What I think it's on page 26 or something like that. We actually had a board meeting a week ago or so, and we talked about that new ham kit, and it's a really good idea. So what we're going to do is we're going to start building it. Darren and I have been working on how to put this thing together, and we're going to come up with the thing, and we're going to have it by the time we end up testing these new people and things like that. But it'll be available for just about anybody. It won't take much money to do it either, because we can build a kit for less than $1. So we feel that we're going to do that. And what it'll do is explain a little bit about the club. It'll be part of our Hamlet class, which basically says, now I got this license, now what the heck can I do with it? And surprisingly enough, you'd be surprised how many people ask that question. So that'll help out too.
Joe, you might explain what's in this kit.
It's hard to say right now. It'll give ideas, not recommendations, ideas on the type of radios you might need. It'll have something like information about joining the club, information about joining areas if they're interested. Just generally, we don't know what it's going to be. It's going to just be everything we do pretty much in the Hamlet class. So that's all I can tell you, Jim. We're not sure yet. Do you know?
No, but you were just talking about a kit, and you weren't explaining any. An idea of what it is just like you said, information.
Yeah, it's just a folder
information about the club and what's available. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and if you haven't seen it, it's basically just a folder with information, leaflets, and things like that inside. Contact points. We'll talk a little bit about Greg's Elmer group and how that works as far as programming radios or antenna stuff and everything that Greg knows everything about. So, you know, it's just information. It's just a folder. Okay. This next one I'm going to turn mainly over to James. We've got a project for the Grover Tower that we're interested in doing. And James, I'm gonna let you take it away from here and you can give him the technical explanation.
Jeez, something wrong with my mouse this morning. So I think I've talked to the club multiple times over the last several years about one of the key pieces of coverage that we are really missing, and that is coverage east of the repeater coverage east of the Cheyenne Ridge, and so the main use for that is folks that are weather spotting. We have a pretty active group of weather spotters that head out sometimes all the way to the state line. There's a pretty active group of spotters out of the Douglas and Elbert County areas that head all the way to the state line as well. And we have, there's a DMR repeater in Akron. There's a DMR repeater in yeah, there is one in Holyoke. Damon is right. It's just not linked to the rest of the system, right? Oh, it is. Okay. Akron and Fort Morgan, but what we're missing is coverage, especially to the north there in the Sterling area and some of the more populous areas out there. So, and Damon Ellis, N0FON, that's on our meeting today, he announced himself. Hi, Damon. He lives in Holyoke, and he is our Aries Region 3 District 3 Emergency Coordinator, and also works for a land mobile company. So he's a great hands-on technical guy with a good passion for Aries and Oxcom and things like that. We've got some smart and dedicated help out there for the first time in a long time. And so little sidetrack there, but getting back to what I've been talking about is the repeater coverage is one thing, but having standalone repeaters out there doesn't help us for Skywarn. It doesn't help us for Aries nets. It doesn't help us for club events and things like that if we're going to have folks attach both sides of the Cheyenne Ridge. Joe has been working with Weld County, and I believe we're all but sealed up on a deal to get access to a tower that would allow us a microwave hopping point to get from Buckhorn Mountain all the way down into the Sterling area. And we've gotten everything kind of approved for the path and the access and all that other good stuff. We've run all the coverage maps. There are multiple opportunities for repeaters in the Sterling area. And so we've actually got two different paths, working with Damon on one of those and working with another emergency manager on some of the other options there. So we've got basically all the pieces lined up and ready to go to get that microwave link over to the Sterling area, get some coverage up there on some permanently linked repeaters. And there's actually, once we get to that point, there are several other cards that or dominoes that are ready to fall where we can bring that path. We always try to make 2 microwave paths everywhere we can, if possible, for redundancy. We've got sites dedicated, lined up, and promised to us to get that microwave link swung all the way down through southeast of there and back over to Denver. So really some great opportunities here to add coverage. And it's not just repeater coverage, right? This will expand our capabilities to do all the things we do at our current sites. We can do VoIP phone service, we could do cameras, we can do that kind of stuff. But so we've got a proposal to the club to help us fund getting this connectivity out there. And we've got some commitments from some of our collaborative clubs to help get some of those repeaters on the air so that we can split the cost of getting this whole system in place and getting some coverage out there. We can finally get Damon connected to us permanently instead of over the internet. So what we're talking about is, so let me add on to this story just a little bit, because I want to talk about how, a lot of folks will say, well, we don't have very many members in this area that we're talking about coverage and things. And this is where I'm going to bring up my same story that I often do and remind us that the reason we have licenses, the reason that we have ham radio and spectrum is in the expectation that we will serve the public, right? That is why ham radio exists. It's an emergency communications aspect that we just have the benefit of utilizing to expand our hobby and learn more, further the knowledge. So I'd like people to think about that as we talk about, the project moving forward. This is not necessarily something that you right along the Front Range is going to benefit from on an everyday basis. Some will, right? Some will. I mean, we will have extra connectivity to folks that we've not been able to talk to, other than an HF. So, but it's not like putting up a Front Range repeater, and that's why I bring that up. We're talking about shooting we'll need fairly large microwave dishes on this project. It's a long path, but we have longer paths in the system and some of our collaborative clubs running for years very successfully. We're talking about putting 3-foot microwave dishes at our Buckhorn West site, pointing to an area that's just north of Grover, Colorado, with another 3-foot dish there. And then we will use a 2-foot dish to make the last 27 miles or whatever it is into the Sterling area there. So we're under 30 miles from there into just about anywhere around Sterling. And that'll provide us our IP digital backbone into the Sterling area. And so that's half the project. The other part of this is that since NCRC supports ARES directly, and ARES is not it is not a dues collecting organization. It's not a 501. It can't own anything. So we have to support ARES through NCRC. As we move this project forward, another thing that we're working on doing is bringing this same digital connectivity, this IP backbone, into at least our county EOCs. And so that, when an emergency happens, the EOC is the first thing to get stood up. And it's typically, other than maybe the ICP, the Incident Command Post, the EOCs are where all the information, all the need for video, all the need for phone service, all the need for radio communications are going in and out of. And right now we have our EOCs pretty well set on voice, and that's about it. So we're trying to bring some digital backbone capabilities in and out of these EOCs along the Front Range to start with, and we can add from there. So what we're asking today is for the club to consider approving funding to add the microwave link to get us into the Sterling area, and add a couple of small pieces to the Weld County EOC to get it linked into existing systems that we already have available. And we're, although the ask today is not inclusive of the equipment but will be shortly the new Johnstown EOC that's replacing the Larimer County / Fort Collins / Loveland EOCs into a single unit there. So, Joe, I can't remember. It's been a while since I sent you all the price sheets. How much are we asking for today?
We're asking for 2,000, and it will run probably, I think the total cost, not counting when you sent it and what we're doing, was like $1,770. Okay. So if we ask for 2,000, we're going to get some money back. Okay.
So yeah, so the ask of the club, and I'm not sure if I missed it or we haven't gotten there yet. Our treasury is actually in pretty good shape right now. I think that was published, right? Was that sent out? So we're at what, $15,000 some in our treasury right now. So we'd like to ask the club to approve $2,000 to put this system in, knowing that shortly thereafter we're going to have some really nice repeater coverage almost to the state line. And we're talking about both digital and analog connectivity out to the Sterling area and past, with the opportunity to add a lot more as that link comes south. So let me stop there and see if there are questions or comments.
James, I may have missed it. What's kind of the time frame at least, or that you're shooting for to get at least the microwave links in and ready to connect to other radios or whatever once we get IP there?
Well, ideally, ideally it would be, I think we're going to be almost imminently ready to, if this is approved, we'll be ready at almost, I would guess a month or so out from being able to get the microwave in there. Ideally, we'd really like to get a set of connected repeaters up by storm spotting season this year, right? So that's May timeframe, June timeframe. It'd be that. I think that's the goal. That's the main aim at this, Mark, is to try and have, a connected set of repeaters on the air by May, June, but have the digital backbone in place by, prior to that, in and tested prior to that.
James?
I might also add, according to the document here, we have $15,563 in the coffers, if you will. Really nothing planned for that money. This would be a pretty good thing. And I'm doing the kind of, I guess you can call it the politics. As everybody's well aware, if you deal with the government, it takes a little while. And we've been talking to them for probably 3 or 4 months now. And I just received a note from Roy the other day saying that he'd sent a note out to Walt, who's their IT, they're the radio guy, I guess. I'm not sure what his position is. And he didn't seem to have any comments about this and that. So he's got to go through some hoops to jump through. But Roy who's the head of the EOC in Weld County, is definitely backing this. I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, and I do. So Joe brings up a good point. Let me just touch base real quickly on kind of the master plan and future expenditures for the year, because we do have to be a little careful, right? We did not get the income from the Hamfest this year. Conversely, we have the highest membership. I mean, our membership numbers are just phenomenal. So thank you all very much for supporting the club and being a part. Because we spent some pretty good money and pretty good time, we rebuilt most of our repeater sites last year, and things are rock solid. Things are looking really good. This winter has been excellent. We've had, I want to knock on wood and be careful I don't jinx myself, but we've had no emergency trips to any sites needed this whole winter so far, other than the horsetooth generator problem, which wasn't our problem. It was our problem. It just wasn't something we could solve. We're still constantly investigating a red feather coverage project. Every time we find something that looks promising on that, something gets in the way, but we've got some more things we're investigating right now. So, that's a potential for money spend in the future with no real leads right now. And as the Buckhorn project, the Buckhorn Tower project, we have purchased everything we need for that when the tower goes up, which, by the way, sidetrack here, but I got a note yesterday from PVREA that says, getting close to starting construction. We're waiting for a building permit from Larimer County, which hopefully we'll have in hand in the next 7 days. EastX Tower has lined up contractors to start geotechnical and foundation work first, anticipating that will take 3 to 4 weeks. So we're looking at mid to late March for tower erection. So that's the latest and greatest news from the Buckhorn Tower. As if you recall, we have brand new antennas, brand new connectors, brand new feed line, everything else. The rack has already been completely rebuilt. So all the outside will get redone when the new tower goes up, and that will be little to zero expense. So A lot of info there, but you know, the main thing is we don't have any really large expenditures planned for the year. Things are in pretty good shape. So any other questions or discussion? You know, so I'll make this official. I propose that we spend up to $2,000 for this project.
I second that motion.
Thanks, Ann. So any other discussion or comments, questions about that?
It's been months since you've been able to spend any money, James. We got to help you out here, bud.
It's killing me, Mike. It's killing me. No, I'm proud of us. You know, I think we have just done amazing things in the last couple of years, and you know, it's thanks to all these folks that are supporting it. So,
Unlike the government, we look at this as this is your money. And not our money. And this will really open up. I mean, we are Northern Colorado Amateur Radio Club, and that is Northern Colorado. And since we're going to basically take this thing and on the road when we go live and be able to broadcast this to whoever wants to see it, this is a big deal. I mean, if we can go to Red Feather and do this other job, I don't know how much more we can do. I mean, that really opens up a lot of stuff.
so
We need to take a vote.
yeah, I guess with that, if there's no other comments, can we vote?
Ask the questions now or forever hold your peace, so to speak.
Well, let's take a vote, Joe.
Okay. All in favor, raise their hand. Well, I guess, or say aye, because we've got a lot of people that aren't on.
Aye.
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 Ew, aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed. Looks like we're unanimous, James. Looks like we can do this.
Okay, well, thanks, everybody. We'll keep everybody in the loop as we move forward, and certainly keep up with the announcements as coverage expands and more options are available for everybody.
I'll give you a little bit more background. Darren and James and I went over and talked to Roy months ago, I think it was. And I was very much, he's the one that brought up, would this Grover Tower help us any? And so I mean, if he's going to bring it up, we're going to kind of try to work with that. So again, we're footing the bill on this, and I think everybody says, well, why don't you get the government to come up with the money? Well, this is just kind of like a little candle out there. If you take a look at this thing, and I'm not going to have to pay for it, I don't have to go through all this hoops to pay for this thing. It looks really good. So that's kind of, and I'm the one that said I think the club should be involved in this because it's going to benefit them. Any other comments, questions? Anything else for this?
James, I don't know if you saw that question, but there was a question there that was asking whether the repeater frequencies were available.
And I was just about to type the answer, but I'll say it here instead. Yes, out there we are able to get frequencies. That's far enough away and not line of sight with other frequencies. We're pretty much tapped along the Front Range for frequencies, but that's far enough away that we will be able to get coordinated there without an issue.
One thing that was brought up at the Aries directors meeting is how about putting an APRS module out there? And it's something we might want to think about, because right now you kind of drop off when you get there with this. And like I said, the hop, if you will, it takes everything. So it's not a matter that it's only going to do this and that. One of the questions was asked, will this handle analog and digital? And the answer is yes. This is not strictly a DMR link.
Not very well published, but there are two digipeaters out here, one at Sterling, one at Holyoke, that are reporting in through Akron.
Oh, okay. Any other conversation about this? Questions? Well, we've passed it, so I guess we're good to go. I'm going to turn this over to Jim now. He's got something that I really kind of want to know a little bit about, hotspots.
Okay, looks like you got the recording started, Joe.
Yes.
Okay. Now to get everything brought back up here. Okay, this meeting's presentation is about hotspots. I'm sure everyone is somewhat familiar with what they are. Some might not know exactly what they do. They're an interesting piece of equipment that can be cheap or can be expensive. Hotspots, different types. What does it do? Setup, and should you build one or buy one? Types are many options. MMDVM boards are the most common. That you can attach them to a Raspberry Pi board, whether it's a Raspberry Pi 3, Pi 0, Pi 2. There's a lot of options depending on what you want to spend and what you want to do with it. Jumbo Spot Skybridge is one that's available, OpenSpot, and a lot of other ones. They can get fairly expensive if you buy them from manufacturers, or they can be fairly inexpensive. In short, a hotspot is just another tool at our disposal to increase our communications ability. They give you the ability to connect to different talk groups, whether it's DMR, Yaesu System Fusion, their wires, X rooms, P25, all the different modes. Some of the older hotspots were only available for DMR and Yaesu, the System Fusion, and some D-Star, but now there's a lot of options with them. When you first setting up a hotspot, always check. I know everyone here I think everyone's from Colorado, so the Colorado Council of Amateur Radio Clubs has posted some guidelines for people to use because of the increase in growth for the number of people using hotspots. They decided to put out some frequencies to use for your hotspot. You can see here, you can go to the ccarc.net and read their guidelines and stuff there. A lot of information available. You get into, anyone have any questions yet about the simplex frequencies or getting in before we get into setting up a Pi-Star or hotspot? Doesn't look like it. When you first set up a hotspot, whether it's new or especially when you build it, when you buy a pre-built one, they generally come pre-configured with parameters you send them, and the only thing you'll have to do is set up your internet connection if you're using Wi-Fi, or if it has the ability to connect through Ethernet connection into your internet service. When you log in for the first time, if you power the hotspot on, most of them should be set for an automatic access point connection, to where you can take any device that's Wi-Fi enabled, search for Wi-Fi connection. It'll bring up the hotspot Wi-Fi. It's usually Pi-Star will be the name listed. Or you can plug it into an Ethernet connection to your internet to log in. If you do the Ethernet connection, you'll have to find the IP address that the Pi-Star is connected to through your network. Type that into your search bar or your internet browser bar, and it'll bring up your digital dashboard. The first time you log into it, if they did not send you any login credentials for it, the default username is PyStar and the default password is usually Raspberry. They are Linux based in the operating system, so they're fairly user friendly and open source software. So it's generally find some good information online about them also. When you first, after you log in, you'll want to click on the configuration tab in the top right corner. That'll bring up the configuration menu. The first thing to do if you plan on using a Wi-Fi connection, scroll down to the bottom of the window and you'll see the wireless configuration. If you click on configure Wi-Fi, it'll bring up a list of all the Wi-Fi connections available. Select the one, your Wi-Fi network. Enter the passkey or password. They refer to it as the PSK or passkey. Enter your password and save and connect. When you save and connect, it will reboot the system and connect to the Wi-Fi, and then you'll have to go back in and log back in through the IP address issued to it. A good choice if you do use the Wi-Fi setting is figure out with your network how to set it as a static IP address instead of one that'll change every time you power the hotspot on. If you have it set as a static IP address, it'll always be the same and only one number to remember instead of always having to search for it. Once you have that set up, the general configuration is where you enter your call sign, your DMR ID, everything else you need. Simplex frequency, your latitude, longitude. One thing a lot of people get confused on is where it asks for town. A lot of people just enter, say, Loveland and not think of anything else. With the Brandmeister and that, they ask that you put the town and your grid location. It helps with their mapping program. If it has the grid location in there, it'll use that instead of your call sign and helps calculate where everyone is from, transmitting from, where hotspots are for better coordination and tracking down if there's any type of interference. Your country, type in United States. Website URL is optional if you have a website that you use, or if you want to link it back to a club website or personal website, you can enter that or leave it at default, or a lot of people just enter it as qrz.com for a website. Board type, you will need to find majority of, if you use an MMDVM board, majority of the time the board type is printed on the board itself, or it's included in the documents with the MMDVM board. Time zone, you can select what time zone you want. As with radio stuff, I always have mine set to UTC because that's what everyone uses for amateur radio to begin with, so might as well leave it there instead of setting it for local time zone. One tip, every section through the configuration menu will have a apply changes button underneath it. You must click apply changes on every section as you change it. If you go through and change the entire page and only click one of the apply changes buttons, it will only apply the changes to that section and everything else will be reset back to the default or previous setting once it reboots. So I always start at the top of the page, work my way down and apply changes as I go. When you are setting up DMR configuration, last year in November, Brandmeister made it where you have to have a hotspot security password in order to access their system. That went into effect, I believe it was November 27th through mid-December for their 3 different master systems. To do that, if you don't have a Brandmeister account set up, you can go to the brandmeister.network, create an account, and under self-care, there is a section to enter a hotspot security password. The hotspot security password you enter there is the exact password you enter in the DMR configuration for your hotspot. The DMR ESSID is there. So if you are using a radio with the same DMR ID as your hotspot, if you do not have the SSID enabled, it can cause communications issues and the hotspot will not hear the radio. So they took it was the same way as with the APRS system, using an SSID between different base station APRS or mobile handheld. Did the same thing here to where it just adds the 2 digits at the end of your DMR ID number. Color code, the default is 1. I generally leave it at 1. The time slot, default time slot and standard time slot on all hotspots is time slot 2. Those are the 2 set parameters you'll need to remember for programming your radio is time slot 2 and the color code that you select and the frequency.
So you're saying you can't use time slot 1? Is that correct?
Majority of the hotspots out there are not dual monitor capable, and the default is 2. There are some dual band full duplex hotspots available that you can use both time slots on, but that's completely separate. I'd say probably 85-90% of the hotspots out there are going to be a single channel only, and only it will go to time slot 2 only. Time slot 1 won't even be enabled.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was wondering. I didn't, care necessarily about both time slots. Was wondered if you could use 1 rather than 2. But from what it sounds like, 2 is the default, and it can't be.
Yeah, one only becomes enabled if you have a dual hat. And once you have everything programmed, you get to have fun rewriting your code plug with your hotspot frequency and talk groups that you want to use. That's why you can use the same frequency for all the channels, or set a channel for every talk group that you want, and make sure you have the same color code. I've come across a lot of people that they'll start programming in for their hotspot, go to say Rocky Mountain Ham's website and pull up their Brandmeister talk group number for the different talk to get into the northern talk group, and enter the color code and everything from Rocky Mountain Ham, and wonder why they can't get into their hotspot. Well, you got to transmit the same color code and time slot that is in your hotspot, not what is on that frequency. The only external number you need is the talk group number from Brandmeister or any DMR network. You need their number to talk through their system. Your time slot and color code are dependent on your hotspot only. When we come, any questions on programming? At the end of the presentation, also, I'll open up the dashboard for one of my hotspots and go through the stuff there to give people a better understanding of where to find stuff and where it is also.
Jim, I do have a question.
Yeah.
And I think I already know the answer, but we can actually hit the northern talk route through Brandmeister. Is that correct?
Correct. Rocky Mountain Ham has a Brandmeister link for their northern talk group, central talk group, and southern talk group.
Now, this frequency that you're talking about, is that from radio to hotspot?
Yes.
Okay, so that can be anything within the 70 centimeter band.
Essentially, it could be anything within that. They have, I believe it was 8 frequencies that the CCARC set aside recommending people use for hotspots, which are around the 438 megahertz.
Okay.
But in general, you legally can use anything that's listed as data within the 70 centimeter or 2 meter frequency. If your some hotspots are capable of VHF and UHF. So as long as you're within the data simplex frequency allocation, but I always recommend just going out. Now that the CCARC has put out the frequencies to use one of the 8 that they have.
Not much chance of somebody else using it in your area.
No, I mean, they would have to have a DMR radio programmed to that frequency with the same color code and same time slot enabled. And the hotspots only put out like 5 milliwatt. And if you use the antennas that are on them, you might get 100-yard radius for signal. Now, I did do a little testing and connected it to my Diamond X200 that's 35, 40 feet in the air and was able to get about 5 miles. But then I just did that for testing just to see how good the signal was. But then I came back home and just used the little rubber duck antennas that came with the MMDVM board. And it works great for around the house and around the property and that.
Yeah, I think part of the reason with CCARC that we come up with those channels is we had people, there's part of the band with the satellite uplink.
Yeah.
Or the quiet part of the band was a piece of it. We'd had people that were putting them on an input to a repeater frequency. And being that most of these run simplex, it's not just, the hotspots are low power, but if you've got your radio that are getting into it, some of them are a watt or 5 watts. So, there was some potential for some interference. So that was pretty much why we had, come up with some frequencies to offer some guidance within the CCARC Council.
Yeah, I mean, once I think it was November, December last year when they came up with them.
We had talked about them. I think we finally finalized them and published them, I think around December. I'd been working with the frequency coordinator along with some others on the council. And, like I say, we'd mentioned it, I think, at our meeting in September or October, but we finally got it published right after Christmas because we figured there may be a few more of them coming out.
Yeah, I mean, I know once I seen them published, I start directing people to that and recommend everyone use one of them frequencies. And before that, it was make sure you're within the proper portion of the band allocation. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely good to have some guidance on what frequencies to use. Any other questions yet?
Jim, one quick question. Does it do other protocols other than DMR? Like, can you do Fusion or D-Star?
Yeah, it does all kinds of 8 different modes, I think. I'll show you here in a little bit all the different modes it does. Like DMR, Fusion, D-Star, P25, NXDN, and a few others. Hey, so should you buy or build? So buying a pre-built one from either Shark RF with their open spot or the Sky Bridge that's available. Most of them you'll be spending anywhere from $300 to $500 to buy one pre-built. If you buy one from one of the name brand ones, you can buy some of the cheaper off-brand for couple $150, $200. They're easy to set up because they generally come pre-programmed with the parameters they're able to. Obviously, they can't really pre-program it with your Wi-Fi connection or internet connection capabilities. Most companies will offer customer support. Some of the cons: higher cost, proprietary components, meaning you rely on them for repairs and service. If something breaks on it or something quits working, a lot of times you'll have to send it back in to their warranty company for any type of work if you don't want to do it yourself and void the warranty, which when you buy something, part of the reason for buying a new product is because of the warranty. If you build your own, pros are cheaper, programmed to your needs because you do all the programming and configuration yourself. a lot of community support, get a better understanding of the equipment and the capabilities of it, and more options for adding to your hardware later down the road if you want to add on to it or make it capable of something else. Some of the cons, steeper learning curve, once again, because you are doing the programming and all the configuration yourself, and a little bit more work to get them set up. In my opinion, more work to set it up means it's going to work better in the end instead of just buying something and hoping it works. This is one of the ones that I use that I've been testing for portable use, connecting through my phone internet service or data plan to use it out on the road, out camping, remote areas. As long as I have data service on my phone, I can have DMR anywhere I go without having to worry about being within range of a repeater. The cost on mine is, well, the Raspberry Pi for the Pi 3B Plus was $41.99. I do use the full duplex dual time slot board, which is $70 to buy. I connected it with a Maker Focus Raspberry Pi board, which is $22. That enables me to plug it directly into any 12-volt power source, whether it's a battery, power supply, anything I use, it uses the same power as my radio does. So I can just connect it to a 12-volt battery and it's good to go. The Raspberry Pi and the MMDVM board require 5-volt power. So having that on there has the built-in buck converter to convert everything down to 5-volt, 4-amp output for the Raspberry Pi and MMDVM board.
So since you're using the Raspberry Pi, can you, for the Wi-Fi connectivity, can you use either 5 gig Wi-Fi or the 2 gig Wi-Fi? I know most of the units that are out there now are all 2 gig, but should be a function of the Raspberry Pi board, correct?
Correct. With the Raspberry Pi 3, depending, I know like some of the older ones, if it's just the 3 or 3B, were 2.4 gig only. The B Plus went to 2.4 and 5 gig Wi-Fi connection. So yes, you can use the 2.4 or 5 gig internet connection with that one.
Thanks.
I know now that they have the Raspberry Pi 4s out, which are significantly better and run a lot smoother. There's some configuration issues to use the MMDVM board with the Pi 4, which are gradually getting worked through with the programming and configuration. I actually have one that I've been playing around with the programming on to try and get it to work reliably. It's almost there, but not quite, which will be a big game changer because you can get, like I said, the Pi 4s are available in an 8 gigabyte memory version and a lot faster and a lot more reliable. Which brings me to, I also have on mine a Raspberry Pi 4 that I use for logging software and other stuff that you're capable of running with radios, whether it's FT8, WinLink, everything else I can run on the other board. Total cost for everything that I use is under $250, which is still cheaper than going out and buying a pre-built one, and it's a lot more capable and can do a lot more things. So there are people playing around with using a Pi 4 with a bigger hard drive attached with a SSD hard drive for booting and everything, that they're almost able to partition the hard drive to where they can use one board for multiple applications and run the hotspot on one partition and still be able to open the other partition for everything else. Any questions before I open up the dashboard for my hotspot? You can see here, once you get, this is You make that full screen just a little bit easier. When you first log in, obviously I've been logged in, so the password and everything has already been entered. The first time you log in, you'll have to enter the username and password. Like I said, the default is pi*, pi-*, all lowercase, and the default password is raspberry. That's RASPBERRY, all lowercase also. They are case sensitive, so make sure you just use lowercase on everything for the default password and username. When you first log in, you'll first come to this screen. Not much on here to see other than if it's set up. If you go to the configuration, you'll see that we'll list the different modes that it's capable of. For the host configuration, the general configuration, in the center of the screen, you'll see the host name, pi*. You enter your call sign, your DMR ID. Do not enter your any SSID or anything additional besides your 6 to 7 digit DMR ID number. Latitude, longitude, town, country, different type, whatever your modem type is. The radio modem type is that your hotspot, whether it's an MMDVM board or OpenSpot, DV mega boards. You can see all the different types of boards that they have. Node type, public, private, which default is private, I believe. I'm not 100% positive, but I believe that was something to do with the hotspots being used in the EU. They required it there because of their laws, and it makes no difference here whether it's public or private. I said at the end of each section, you can see that there is an apply changes button. Now, if I was to change something here and hit the apply changes button here, it would not apply the changes from the general configuration. You have to hit the apply changes at the bottom of each section. DMR color code, everything set in this section. You can, if you have a GPS capable, you can enable GPS configuration and everything else. I don't use it because GPS through digital modes isn't very reliable and not, in some cases, not legal to use, because if you does transmit over RF, you must also transmit your call sign, which not many programs do. Firewall configuration, I recommend leaving everything to private unless you're planning on, if you need to connect to it remotely, then you can obviously switch it to public. But everything I use is private on my network, and if I need to, I can log into my network and access it directly from the network remotely. You can see I have mine. This one is connected through Ethernet, so the interface, the wireless configuration shows interfaces down because it's not connected through Wi-Fi. You can configure multiple Wi-Fi connections, which the one I use, portable, will connect to. It will give you a list of how many different ones you have connected. It connects in order that they're listed. So if I have my home Wi-Fi connection listed first, and then I use the hotspot or Wi-Fi connection through my data plan on my cell phone, and that is listed second, whichever one is listed first, it'll connect to. So if I take that hotspot out in my truck and drive down the road and lose my home Wi-Fi, it'll automatically connect to my phone Wi-Fi, and so on. If there are people that have 4 or 5 different Wi-Fis connected, whether it's at their cabin out in the mountains, and then their vehicle, and then their home, and different areas. Another tip, never hit the factory reset button in the Pi* menu. If you hit the factory reset button, and if you have a LCD display configured with the MMDVM board, it erases all of the needed drivers for that, and you will spend a day and a half, 2 days getting all the drivers set back up because it all has to be done through command line SSH connection. Not very fun unless you're very experienced to do command line installation of software. The update button, you can click update and it'll update all the drivers and everything, all the settings. I generally try and do that at least once a week. You can see it, you just clicked update and it goes through and does all of the updates automatically. Which this one should go fairly quick because it was just updated yesterday. It says starting file updates complete, sleeping for a few seconds before making disk read only, and it is finished.
And this doesn't change anything that you've inputted, correct?
No, it does not change anything. It just updates all the binary files and host files and that. All your configuration remains the same. I know like right now, the PyStar software is at version 4.1.4. The operating system, it's the same as if you like update your Windows operating system or Mac operating system. It updates everything that runs in the background that makes it capable for security and ease of use in that. A lot of people will just use the dashboard to see what is running in that and the status. I generally like to use, if you go to the admin section, shows the complete dashboard, but it also shows the CPU temp, CPU load and everything. So you can see if something's being overloaded, gives you a little bit more information, but shows everything the same. You can run multiple different settings. Like I can run DMR and the Yaesu system Fusion at the exact same time, and it will, but it can create crosstalk, and I have seen it and had it happen once to where the transmit got froze on open, so it was just kept bouncing back and forth. So I recommend only running one system at a time. If you can see, it does do DMR, D-Star, Fusion, P25, NXDN. You can do Fusion to DMR, meaning you can use a Fusion radio and cross mode into DMR. You can also do Fusion to NXDN, Fusion to P25, DMR to Fusion, DMR to P25, the POXEG paging features. I'm not haven't played with that one yet, so I'm not too familiar with that is.
So in order to do that, Jim, you're going to have one of these click. It just doesn't automatically go from DMR to Fusion, correct?
Correct. Most of the time, like I'll use, turn on Fusion because I can show it without using the radio. DMR, whenever you have it set, whenever you whatever channel you have programmed in your radio and transmit it, it'll automatically change the talk group for you. So say I'm talking on the northern talk group with my radio, and then all of a sudden I want to go to their one of the TAC channel, like the TAC 319 channel on DMR. I just switch the channel to that and key it up, and it automatically switches the hotspot to that talk group. Like I said, see, I changed the Fusion from DMR. Click Apply Changes. It'll take a second to switch it over. Now that it's over, if I go over to the dashboard or admin function, you can see that it has Yaesu YSF Link Manager. I can click the drop-down menu and select any of the hundreds of talk groups that Fusion has. In North America, click request change, it'll link to that talk group.
I'm curious about the quality of the sound. Fusion actually sounds better than DMR. If you had a radio that was doing DMR and you transmitted on Fusion, does it make it any better or not?
No, it will be this exact same, because your hotspot will be receiving the DMR and doing the cross mode transfer to put it into the Fusion mode to transmit, go over the internet.
Okay.
And
so
vice versa. If you use a Fusion radio, your hotspot's going to receive that and convert it to DMR.
And then that would sound actually better than DMR, right?
It would sound the same. It's going to sound the same either way. It'll sound like DMR because that's what's being actually transmitted and received on the other end.
Okay. Okay. But as far as going the other way, if you're transmitting on DMR to Fusion, it stays DMR.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And you see right now it's showing that, oh, I'm on the Fusion Worldwide. This guy just transmitted DO1 ULI, transmitted 8 seconds, no loss, no bit error rate. And so you can see that came over the net. And guys transmitting again. And whenever I transmit through my hotspot, it'll show up RF is the source instead of net. Let me see if I have. And of course, that radio's dead. So let me go back to configure. Now, if I want to go back to DMR, right, so I can. Now that I have this connected, I can go to this on for my cell phone to log into the configuration menu also. And now I'm back in DMR mode. If I go to the dashboard or admin, it still show up gateway activity because the gateway actually received that. Shows my Brandmeister, the master that it's on is the 3101 repeater ID, static talk groups, dynamic talk groups. Now I have my DMR HT to transmit on the hotspot or the DMR through to the Northern Talk Group for Rocky Mountain Ham. KA6 ETE testing. You can see it came up right there. Call sign time, DMR time slot 2. Target, for some reason, it's showing a call sign there instead of the talk group, but it's going through the talk group 4721 North. Source is RF, loss 0, bit error rate 0.7%, which is probably because I'm only about 2 feet away from it. So it's probably overloading the front end a little bit. And now if I take my radio and switch to central talk group, going through the hotspot, KA6 ETE testing. Shows up there. Let me go. Look in here, and then I can go down to my hotspots. This will be where you get for your to set up an account. If you go to, oops, once you set it up, if you click on your username at the top, go to self-care. Right here is where you enter your security password, your hotspot security. Enter it there. Make sure that's turned on. And then that'll be what you use on your hotspot. Now, if I go down here to my hotspot, it'll show information for the hotspot and everything else. Click on call sign, show your different hotspots, tell you how many, last time you were heard, duration, talk group that you were talking into, signal going into the internet. And everything right there. So a lot of tools to use for a lot of different information. Anyone have any questions?
So Jim, you said this could be used for analog as well?
No, you can configure stuff to where it'll receive. Some of them you can receive an analog signal and it'll convert it, but it can't be used for analog communication between like radio to radio or any type of repeater stuff.
So the radio that you're using to talk to the hotspot has to have the digital mode capabilities. Is that true?
For 99% of the stuff, yes. But what you can do is, because say like if I know a lot of people have, like if you have the Yaesu radio that has digital capability, their YSF capabilities, you can do the YSF to DMR. So you can use a Fusion radio to talk over DMR talk groups and vice versa. If you have a cheap DMR radio, you can use that to talk over Fusion talk groups.
Okay.
Some of the other stuff they are playing around with using, being able to use an analog radio and have the hotspot that'll receive it, convert it to digital. But for the most part, anything that's reliable, you'll need some type of digital input to get digital output. It'll cross mode it between the different digitals once it's received, but it wants a digital, some type of digital input.
Right. Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions?
So I've got a Yaesu 100D here, which I've had for a long time. It's C4FM capable for sure. Set up a hotspot downstairs, plug it in the Ethernet, and basically I can talk DMR, correct?
Correct.
And there's no, other than I'd have to click the saying that I'm talking on Fusion, that I'm basically going into DMR. That has to be checked as far as into your programming, right?
Correct. You would have to enable the YSF to DMR in the hotspot. And then it'll take the YSF signal and convert it to DMR and transmit and send that over the internet connection.
Does software come with it? Is this a free software? I mean,
Yeah, it's all Linux systems. It's all open source software, so it's all free. The only cost you have is buying the hotspot, whether it's you build one or buy one pre-built. I like building them because it's cheaper and I can add to it. Like with mine, I have mine set up to where I can use the one for digital modes on HF and VHF, and set up also as a DMR hotspot.
But you're programming the hotspot. You're not necessarily programming through your computer to the hotspot, correct?
Correct. Whenever the hotspot, let me get this turned off. Let me shut this one down and
And that would be a hardware connection, not necessarily a Wi-Fi connection, correct?
well, you can use Wi-Fi connection or hardline Ethernet connection. This is a Raspberry Pi 4, the size of it, which the hotspot connects right to the top of it. Like the MMDVM board just plugs right in. The memory card, or not really a memory card, but what the hard drive is to store the program, is a little micro SD card.
Oh, okay.
And so this is a single board computer. There's not much you can't do with them. I mean, you can go online, write code, program stuff, watch YouTube. It's a all out computer. That's why on mine, on the one I have, is set up with, I can't bring it over far enough, but it's set up with 2 different Raspberry Pis, one that I use for the hotspot, one that I use for logging software and digital modes. On the process of getting it set up for digital modes where I can do WinLink, FT8, FT4, Whisper, all the different digital modes on an HF radio, or even VHF, do the VHF packet and that with it also, and have hotspot all in one little configuration that's not much bigger than that. So when I'm out in my camper, I just take the one, connect the HDMI output on it to the TV monitor that I already have in my camper, and I have a full computer set up for any digital mode that I want. That all runs on 12 volt. And it cost me $250 versus spending $350 just for a hotspot.
Well, I noticed that on your list of materials, you had 2 Raspberry Pis on there. Did you use both of them?
The one right now, because of the trying to figure out the configuration to use one single Raspberry Pi to do everything simultaneously, is a little bit of a headache and not reliable yet. I have 2 Raspberry Pis on there, one that is dedicated to a hotspot and one that is dedicated for all the other digital modes.
Oh, okay, okay. So you actually are using both of them.
Yeah. I mean, so the one that I use for portable right now is twice that size of a square, but it's twice as thick. So it's 2 inches thick instead of 1. I mean, this is pretty much the size of a credit card, but an inch thick.
Interesting.
They're fun to play with and different things, and inexpensive to play with. I mean, like the Raspberry Pi 3B Plus is $45. The Raspberry Pi 4, the one that I have, was $110 because it's got the 8 gig RAM versus a 2 gig RAM, and it's got a 4-core processor versus a single core processor. I mean, so with the one with the Pi 4, you can watch high definition video without issue, where with the Pi 3 you're limited to only watching up to, I think it's a 480 or 720 quality video for reference.
Can definitely see a new project coming up.
And that's the one I use that has everything on it. You can see the two antennas, the upper parts, the Raspberry Pi, or the Hotspot, and the lower one's the Raspberry Pi 4. And that'll do everything for me. I said total cost for this to do everything, $250 versus $300 just for something that does one thing.
You did mention that there are cheaper ones, but you didn't condemn them. I'm curious about.
No, the cheaper ones with everything else, you pay what you get for. A lot of the cheaper ones will only do 3 different modes. Like the cheaper one will only do DMR, Fusion, and D-Star. It won't do the cross mode between them and stuff like that. I mean, but if it's cost effectiveness, if someone just wanted something to use for DMR only, you can pick one up have one complete to build yourself between like a Raspberry Pi Zero, which is around $20, and a $25 board for it for the Hotspot to do DMR only, which will give you the same capability, but it's limited on what it can do. So $50 you can build one. I'm just the type, if I build something, I want to build it for multiple uses and multiple items in one package.
Yeah, I understand that. Then you don't have to buy it again.
Yeah. And with having it I look at having 2 Raspberry Pi boards. If something happens to the one, hardware wise, I can take the micro SD card out of one, put it in the other one, and it's already programmed and works. So it's essentially having a backup.
Very good. Any other questions for Jim? Come on, this was interesting.
So I know Darren has the file for the presentation, the PowerPoint portion of the presentation, which he'll probably be uploading onto the website, so that'll be available for people too.
Yeah, I was going to do that, but when we were recording it, I was going to wait until we got the video so we could actually throw that up there too. So
yeah, I know we'll have that video up there, and I know this is on YouTube also, so it's up there. So,
any other questions for Jim?
Jim, one thing I might throw in, this is Ron. I put together my duplex hotspot a couple of weeks ago. And one thing I did, rather than set it up for Wi-Fi, I just set it next to my router and ran a cable and set it up by cable. And that seems to just eliminate a lot of potential headaches with Wi-Fi. I mean, it immediately connected to the internet, and I haven't even rebooted it since I set it up. So if you can hardwire it, it just removes that one complexity.
Yeah, I mean, I do the same thing. If mine, like I have one sitting here on my desk that's hardwired and through Ethernet connection. I don't use Wi-Fi on that just because of that. If I'm able to connect something directly, I'll connect it directly. Yeah, but I have a second one that I use Wi-Fi on for portable use.
Yeah. The other thing I was going to mention, I think you use the same ones, but for people that are going to grow their own, the cases that are made by C4 Labs, it's not worth even looking at anything else as far as I'm concerned.
This one right here.
Yeah, I saw you had the same one. Yeah, they're just so nice. They go together so well. They're really nice cases.
Yeah, well, I actually bought some, not plexiglass, the acrylic, and I have a laser cutter now, so I'm going to be
cool.
making my own to where I can, it'll be cheaper and I can custom make it to fit everything that I have. You can see with this one has parts of the acrylic C4 case, but I want something to fully enclose it, which for a dual board and everything else, they don't really make anything. So.
Yeah, nice.
Any other questions for Jim? I have a question for you, but it's actually on another subject, so stick around for a minute if you don't mind afterwards. Has to do with the FT70s.
Yeah.
So. Anything else? Well, guys and gals, I thank you so much for stopping by. I really appreciate this. Next month, I finally think I've talked James into doing his battery presentation, which he did, for Aries, I'm guessing 8 years ago, maybe, when we were over at the firehouse there where you're at, Mike, over at Windsor. Excellent presentation. And now he's coming back going to tell me, no, you didn't. So anyway, he's going to be, go ahead.
No, just to add to that, Joe, it's updated, much updated now with all the lithium chemistries and things. So it's focuses on both lead acid and lithium batteries.
Looking forward to it. Do remember, if you guys want to see a presentation of something, send me a note at president@ncar.net. We will get it out there. I am amazed at the people that we have in this club that want to do presentations and that know what they're dealing with much more than I do. So I thank you very much for that.
Hey, Joe.
Yes, sir.
I wanted to take just a very quick minute. I happened to notice in QST, I think this month, that Mr. David O'Farrell, WB0IXV, is listed as a recent recipient of the ARRL's recognition of high-speed CW. So congratulations to Dave for that.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. You have to read the fine print. I don't know if everyone looks at that, and they always report all of the different contest winners that go over 3 pages of 4 columns of tiny print of call signs. So you must spend a lot of time reading it. You're looking for call signs, but thank you for the compliment.
Actually, it was highlighted in a half-page ad this month. So yeah, congratulations, 25 words a minute for Dave there. So I just want.
Yeah, but you only have to get 1 minute. Yeah, it's not all 7 minutes or whatever they send during their W1AW runs. You just have to get 1 minute.
1 minute at 25 words a minute is a very respectable achievement. So congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. It's about as fast as I can write. I don't think I can go faster.
Well, David, I'm waiting for when they give an award for 1 word every 10 minutes.
Yeah, well, maybe NCARC could start that award. It could be a beautiful plaque. With the money I hear you guys have, it shouldn't be a problem getting you a nice gold plaque.
And only 3 letters.
So just send you your call sign till you copy it correctly.
Oh, that's too much. That's too much.
SOS.
Yeah.
I tell you, I've been working on that. James gave me a little thing years ago, and I'm still working on the dang thing. So I'm not very smart.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things you have to get into your subconscious. It's just like a lot of times you hear the first couple notes of a song on the radio, and you know exactly what the song is. And I know you didn't set out to memorize those, and it's sort of the same thing. It just takes a fair amount of time, and they say, lots of short sessions are better than saying you're going to spend all day tomorrow and learn the code. That's not going to work. So
Well, I've played in bands for almost 30 to 40 years, and everybody says, well, you've got the rhythm. I mean, you know that. And if you talk to any one of the band members' wives, they say they'll never dance with them because we have no rhythm. That's a fact. That is a fact.
Yeah.
Now, we're going to dance with you. You got no. I'm looking at the drummer thinking he has no rhythm. So,
but again, you probably played many pieces so many times you don't need to look at the sheet music at all to do it. But you never set out to actually memorize it that way. You could probably even write the notes on, a blank set of sheet music for whatever instrument you play.
We have never used sheet music. Never. In the 20 to 30 years, because we're doing at that time we were doing top 40. You had to have the record, so you just kind of put it down on the thing and listen to the word, wrote them down. Really, I've never used sheet music.
Okay. Well, you've got perfect pitch then.
No. The thing of it is, we work in bars; they don't care. So,
not after 8 p.m.
No, 6 p.m. No, in fact, I had somebody ask me that. Well, what kind of sheet music? I've never used. We've never used sheet music. Just kind of remember to play it and pick it up from there. So,
yeah.
But
keep poking away at it. You'll acquire it. If you're able to do that with music, you'll be able to acquire the code. And you don't have to be 25 words a minute. Mostly in QSOs, I just poke along at 13, 15 words a minute is fine. You don't have to. I'm not a contester. Those guys, I think they just use computer to computer mostly, sending and receiving the code. But I just, it's kind of one of these things. That's what I grew up with. I was licensed in the mid-'60s as a novice, and so I've just kind of always kept it.
I think it's a good idea. I think everybody should at least take a look at it. But I really struggle with it, and I don't know why I don't struggle. I'm back to like the phase one. I mean, if you give it up for like 6 weeks, you're better going back. I'm not the bright one like the rest of these guys.
Yeah, but you've got experience like most of us.
I have that. I can find it. Anything else we could have fun with tonight or today? Well, thanks so much, folks. Appreciate you all stopping by. And hopefully when we get out of this COVID situation and everybody gets their shots, we'll start having rosin core projects. In fact, we've got a couple ideas for some excellent rosin core projects. If you're not familiar with what rosin core is, this is a hands-on type group that we actually are going to work with the city through the city of Fort Collins when they open up. And we'll basically go in there and we'll help you build a kit. We'll have some experts online showing you maybe mostly through-hole projects and things like that. So be more than happy to have you stop by and do that. And we will let you know when our Hamlet class goes for the new folks that are here. And you don't have to be new. I mean, we've had some people with extras actually stop by and listen in. So thank you very much and good night.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Joe.
This presentation was brought to you by the Northern Colorado Amateur Radio Club. For more information, visit our website, ncarc.net. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.